So here we are. It's Saturday following Grand Slam semifinals, and the game I think everybody wants to talk about is Brendan Bottcher and Joel Retornaz. 6 blank ends to start the game. The classic cries for boring and eliminate blank ends and things like that start to happen. And I just want to go through the why first. If we're going to look at trying to change the rules in the game, we have to understand why teams are playing the way they are. And when we go look at the shot and the end that set this all up, really, it's that 7th end.
Game on the line here on our feature sheet. They're going top 8-foot dead buried. Has to be dead buried right on the tee in the PT's logo would be perfect. Where there's no type of in-off. They look briefly at going right to the back one where they can freeze for shot stone, but there's an in-off for 4.
It's clear in this end that this was never going to be a blank end. Both teams were in the game to go. 2 center guards still in place late in the end. Sets up the big score for Bottcher here, but still leaves the out for Retornaz, and he goes and takes it with this draw.
Just a little. Right on the button. That's pretty buried. That is
Clearly all in here. It's going to be a steal of 1 or a big score for Bottcher.
They have to go with the other turn, I think, Coach John.
But you look at the distance here, and there is a makeable shot.
What a game.
The reason for those red stones on the edges is Bottcher's team made several digs.
You really couldn't have placed it much better in terms of line.
Rolled to the wing,
Perfect.
lied as an extra shot.
It's a little bit over buried. Yeah, on the yellow one. Chance to come off the yellow corner guard. Yeah.
What do we say Bottcher makes this shot?
Nothing in a game that's 0-0 through 6.
50% of the time? Everybody take your best guess, because that's really a question here that the team has to answer themselves.
Backline weight.
But when you jump ahead in the end, the shot here from Bottcher,
Last rock. In the 7th end. Scoreless to this point. Bottcher and Retornaz. And you hear it, gotta go.
they're sweeping to hold the line here.
Really good.
Unfortunately, they hold it too straight, kill it early, clear the guard by a ton,
They nudge it. And it will be.
and it's a steal of 1 for Retornaz.
So 6 ends, scoreless, blanks all the way, and it's a steal right now for Retornaz. Brendan Bottcher's going to have his hammer in all 8 ends in this one. Isn't that amazing?
That's not great communication there. Kept it too straight.
So still, the hammer belongs to Bottcher, but he's down 1-0.
And this is the line score that we talk about here. Bottcher, Retornaz, the first 6 ends. Retornaz gets that steal in the 7th. Bottcher held to a single in the 8th, and then Retornaz gets 2 in the extra for the win. So like when we start to talk about this, now we need to try and figure out why so many blank ends. Because when these teams open up and play, they actually, the first rock is a guard, they put stuff into play like they normally do, and the blank ends don't typically happen until later in the end. But when we go look at the data, and that's really the critical piece here. So this is Bottcher. His record this season, games played, strong record. And what I want to really start to focus on this information here. So when we scroll down here, I want to go look at when teams are tied with the hammer. Extra end, 1 end, 2 end, 3, 4, 5 remaining. And you look at the numbers there, and they're pretty solid. Up and down, a little bit of a sample size issue with not a lot of ends yet, but ballpark probably in the 65% range across all ends. So you take that as a number for Bottcher, tied with the hammer. A strong number you don't want to have to pressure and push. If you're ever pushed to a single point, up steal 1 point. That means up 1 without the hammer. you'll see again, strong numbers. 65, 70%. So, you think those are good numbers. But now let's look at some of his peers. Brad Gushu. Got his numbers. Tied with the hammer. 100% means 100% win rate. 6-0 means 6-0 record. And the 23.5% means that above the overall average. So when you look at these teams, they are better than the average team. So much so, you have to ask, why would they put any pressure or any risk into play? And one of the problems we have for Bottcher, and this is their numbers here again, is they've struggled a little bit this season, specifically when they get behind. I did lose that one there. So you look at Mowat. Again, the numbers. Tied with the hammer. They don't lose. Go look at Adim the last 2 years. They don't lose. Oscar Eriksson. Skipping the team so far this year. And again, Matt Dunstone. These teams win when they have hammer tied. So there is no reason for a team with hammer to take any risk at the top of the game when they are this good of a team. When you dive a little deeper into Retornaz's numbers, season record, playing really, really well on the season, ranked in the top 10 on the world rankings. Their numbers, solid as well. But the column I want to look at for Retornaz is their tied steal. Tied without the hammer. And when you look at Retornaz, starting without the hammer, they're an underdog. Talking to Matt Hall at CoolBet, the betting line on them was 65% in favor of Brendan Bottcher. So when you're the underdog in a scenario like this, you got to look for your chance and push all in. And for Retornaz, his record, ends remaining, the second column there, that's down one without, a reasonable number. And of course, they're playing teams that they are better than most of the time. You look at the scenario here, they get into that 8th end, or that 7th end, 2 ends to go, 45, 46%. So that was where they deemed their chance to push all in. That's what Retornaz did. And he hit it on the river. That rock was buried, but it was a makeable shot. What percentage of time does Brendan Bottcher make that shot? A fairly significant amount of times, I would say. But then you got to question why they're pushing for 5 in that scenario instead of 2 or 3. And peeling those center guards at some point in that end would have made sense to make sure they didn't give up the steal. And that still was their critical component in that loss. But at the end of the day, I don't think Bottcher did anything wrong by trying to blank every end. And when you consider how good these teams are tied with the hammer, why would you risk giving it up?